Davante Adams and Shailene Woodley have a lot in common in that Aaron Rodgers failed to deliver a ring to both of them this year. And I'm not going to do any cheap shots. Shailene kind of felt like family. Okay, no, that's it. That's it. We're not going to do cheap shots. I don't want to take shots at Aaron Rodgers, but I did want to bring up Davante Adams for a reason, and that reason is this. I know a lot of people will be looking at the wide receiver class and say, why aren't we going after Davante Adams? I will say, number one, he is going to be franchise tagged by the Green Bay Packers. They are not letting him go. Number two, the price tag, way too high. And Davante Adams needs to go out there and play for a team that's going to compete for a Super Bowl this season. And even me, as the most optimistic Bears fan that I know, I can say we're probably not going to go to the Super Bowl next year. I'm not ruling it out. I wouldn't be upset by it, but I'm saying that Davante Adams seems a little unrealistic. So instead, what we're going to focus on today is some of the more realistic names of guys the Bears can bring in to play wide receiver this year. And you know what? With that, Sammy, let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank, and today we have got a great show for you planned from the Windy City FS. It is going to be Adam Rosen to be on in just a couple of minutes to talk about some of the wide receivers and what the Bears are going to do moving forward. And after that, but joining us from the NFL Network in a little bit, Kayla Burton. You might have seen her on the Super Bowl live coverage with me. We'll be talking about the Super Bowl parade, and if she's really afraid of Velociraptors. We'll get to the bottom of that. But first, I want to go back to the wide receiver question. And of course, looking at the wide receiver position in free agency. We talked about that a little bit on Tuesday night with Take It to the Rank. We had Jacob Infante with us going over some of the names. And I did want to take a little bit more time going through the list, taking a little bit more of an opportunity. And right now, I would like to introduce a brand new feature. It is called Adam Ranks. And this week, we're going to be ranking the top 5 realistic wide receivers to target in free agency. I'll spit this out. Don't worry about me. Listen, it's been a long week or two, or 12 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is. And we'll have an animation for this at some point. But without further ado, let's start at number 5 and a wide receiver that I really like, and that is Auden Tate. And you know what? This is a guy that if the Bears went out there and signed Auden Tate, Twitter would have a field day. People would rip us, be like, oh, you're going to win the Super Bowl now. But I really do believe moves like this are what helps you build out a wide receiver room. Now, Auden Tate is not going to come in. He's not going to dominate. He's not going to be a number one guy. He's not going to lead the NFL with 2,000 receiving yards or anything like that. But he is the kind of player that you bring in on a cost-controlled contract who's got a lot of size, who's got a lot of speed, somebody who can get down the field. His average yards per target are excellent. He is somebody who could be a valuable piece to this wide receiver room, and I think the Bears should take a look. At number 4, we are going to go, and I told everybody, like, I know this list. I don't need to see this list. I'm assuming it's Christian Kirk. I know that I redid this. I did. I got it. Listen, I was telling, no, it's DJ Chark. Listen, Sammy, I told you I was so cocky about this. I'm like, I'm not going to forget the list as we're doing it. Immediately forgot the list. But DJ Chark is something that we talked about on the Take It to the Rank show with Jacob Infante. He really loves DJ Chark, and I love him too. And again, he is one of these players who I would put in a similar type of category with Auden Tate, of like somebody who's definitely got the size, who's got the ability. We've seen one great year from him. And again, these are the kind of moves that you can help build out your wide receiver room. You cannot bring in DJ Chark to be your number one guy. And you can't be like, well, we're signing DJ Chark, that's that, and move on. But I do believe that if the price is right, and he's coming off an injury as well, he is somebody who could be very valuable to this team moving forward. At number 3, we're going to go with Christian Kirk. Now we'll go with Christian Kirk. I really love Christian Kirk, and I liked him coming out of college, thought he was a fantastic prospect. I think in Arizona, he never really did get a huge opportunity. But you know what? This season, he did set career highs in receiving yards, yards per target. And again, we're looking for players who can get down the field. Justin Fields is an excellent deep ball passer. I think that what we should be looking for, guys we should be targeting, are the guys who can who can run those routes, get deep. We've seen Christian Kirk do that plenty of times. I know that he's kind of taken a backseat to DeAndre Hopkins and even AJ Green this year, but I think bringing him to the Bears, putting him with Darnell Mooney, that could be a winning combination. At number 2, I'm going to go with Michael Gallup. And this is going to be a little bit of a risk because there are injury concerns. He's coming off an ACL tear. And honestly, Michael Gallup might be one of the hottest names in free agency if he was coming out completely, fully healthy. And there might be a team like the Kansas City Chiefs that goes out there and overpays that can allow him a couple of months to rehab and get ready. And they're only going to bring him in. It's like, look, your first year, all that matters is the playoffs. I think the Bears need to be in a very similar situation where it's like, look, if you take a risk on Michael Gallup, you have to understand for the first couple of months of the season, he's not really going to be available to you. And that's fine. We're looking at long-term. We're looking at a guy who can absolutely be a game changer. Now, he's not at the level of Amari Cooper or he's not CeeDee Lamb or somebody like that, but he's very close. And I think given the right situation, Michael Gallup has had to perform in a crowded receiving room. And every time that he has been featured, we saw this a couple of times. Andy Dalton really liked him a couple of years ago. And I know like we shouldn't use Andy Dalton as the one, like this is who we're going after. I really do believe that Michael Gallup possesses some of the best talent of this entire free agent class and is somebody who needs to be looked at. And of course, let's move on to number 1. And I'm going to say Chris Godwin, which again, this is pie in the sky. I'm hoping that there's going to be a little bit of a discount. I think Chris Godwin, I know that I labeled this as a realistic countdown, and there's probably some elements to this that is not realistic, but I am such a huge fan of Chris Godwin because outside of all these other players, he is an absolute game changer. He is somebody who can come in there and be a number 1 guy, an undisputed number 1 guy who is going to be the focal point of this offense. Obviously, if not for the first couple of months of the season, maybe not even in 2022 altogether. But at some point, he is going to be the receiver that we rely on moving forward. So I would be willing to take the risk on Chris Godwin. I'm sure other people might not be willing to do such a thing. And with that in mind, why don't we bring in from the Windy City FS fan-sided, Adam Rosen is going to be joining us here today. He can make fun of my list. He can harangue me. Listen, I'm not so fragile that you can't challenge me on any of my picks or anything like that. But first things first, how you doing, Adam?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I got your name correct, so I think that's good. We're at a pretty good spot.
I'd be a little offended if you didn't get my name right, since we have the same name. Man,
it would be a little
cool
bit
name, I'd say.
Yeah, a couple of Adam R's. We're good. We're just kicking it. What do you think of this list? I'll put you on the spot right now. What do you agree with? What do you not agree with? I will actually say this. Here's the list right here. Chris Godwin, Michael Gallup, Christian Kirk, DJ Chark, and Auden Tate. What stands out to you?
So I did not think of the name Auden Tate, but as a this is a weird way to say it, but as a frequent Madden player, I actually do like signing on. I like signing on Tate in Madden because I've always been a fan of a receiver who's tall, who's big size, and he's 6'5". And honestly, he wouldn't be the number 1 receiver going in right away. I think, like you said, Twitter would have a field day with that, but they have a field day with the Bears all the time. So
yeah,
who knows? But I like Auden Tate because size, and I know he hasn't played a ton because one, he was a late round draft pick. He's been hurt a little bit the last few years. I believe he was on the COVID list last year. Yeah. But I like him because he's 6'5". For a guy who's 6'5", a 4.68 40-yard dash at his combine. Obviously, he could have been faster now, but who knows? I like that a lot in a receiver. I do agree. I actually have a couple more guys on the list, only because one of them, I don't know if he is technically a free agent, but I do have Allen Robinson on my list because maybe with a new coaching staff, maybe with a new front office, maybe things changed. Although I know he got mad at the fan base. We kind of turned on him because we're Bears fans. So we get mad about it a lot. I think we all know. And he didn't trust the staff. They kind of schemed him out of the offense. And I mean, yes, he missed a few games this year, but he had his lowest targets in Chicago this year at 66, which is, I believe that's by far his career lowest, except for when he tore his ACL in Jacksonville. And that's another guy And that brings up my guy, Michael Gallup, who would technically be my number one. He did tear his ACL, but we signed Allen Robinson off a torn ACL, and we saw what Allen Robinson was able to do. And he's young. He's 26 at the start of the season. He will probably going to miss a few games at the start of the year, maybe not. But he's really athletic. He's got a good height. He plays at a really good weight, and he gives maybe if they go out and draft a guy, he could be a number 2. He could probably be a number 1. I personally don't think Darnell Mooney is that number 1 guy, but he can be a number 2, maybe even a slot or 3, and he can win a lot of contested balls down the field. I do have a DJ Chark on my list at 3. He's young, been injured most of the season, but he was really good on a really bad Jacksonville team. Like, it was that bad. I mean, Mike Glenn was their quarterback for part of the year last year, I believe. Not this past year, but previous season. They had so many issues. He's also 6'4", so he has a ton of height. And I like good size in a wideout, especially at number 1. Number 4, I have Mike Williams, which I feel like not a lot of people have talked about because obviously he was drafted very high, but he's coming off of another really breakout year. He performed great with another young quarterback named Justin Herbert. He's actually, I feel like he's been pretty healthy in his career, played most of the games he has. He just hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities. He's a huge deep ball guy. And in 2019, his yards per catch was 20.4, which is insane. And like DJ Chark, he's got great size and he gets a lot of targets. Last year, he had 129 targets, 76 receptions, 15.1 yards per reception. That's a ton. And this one's going to be unpopular. I know this is going to get me a lot of hate. I'm going to say Juju Smith-Schuster because people want to make fun of him because of the TikTok dances, and I get it. It's easy to do that because people can't stand TikTok. I can't either, even though I have one. But he's actually a really good person. People want to think he's a bad guy, but he's actually really not. He does a lot of things for the community. I believe he helped feed a bunch of homeless people during Thanksgiving in Pittsburgh. And when healthy, he's been a stud. I mean, people really thought he was going to be the Steelers' future, excuse me. And I think leaving Pittsburgh, maybe that'll help. And he was on a 1-year deal, but obviously another guy who has struggled to remain healthy, especially in recent years. He missed a lot of this season. In his career stats, 26 touchdowns, about 12 yards per reception. And then my last guy, I do have Christian Kirk on the list as a slot guy, though, not as a number 1 guy, so they can draft the number 1 guy early. They need a slot receiver to me. He's been pretty good in Arizona. He hasn't been like exceptionally spectacular, but this year probably I would say his best season because he got a lot of targets. He had 77 receptions on 103 targets, 982 yards, and about 12.8 yards per reception. I really like that as a good height for a slot guy. He's really quick and one of the guys for Fields because the Bears need a slot receiver.
No, I'm in agreement with you in a lot of those positions, a lot of those guys. I would like to touch on Juju for a moment because initially I did have him on my list and I was going back and forth. And really it came down to he got bumped because I put Chris Godwin on there, who you left off, which is understandable because, again, I pose this to you as a realistic observation. And to me, and to a lot of people, Chris Godwin might not be realistic. And I understand that. I think that any sane person, if you're like, hey, you can have Devontae Adams and Chris Godwin, you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll take them. But is it realistic for the Bears situation? Maybe not. Devontae Adams, hell no. Like, they just won't be. It's not because he's not a great player or anything like that, but that's just not a realistic situation. They're not going to do it. Yeah, you just couldn't do it. And so I like the idea of Juju for a lot of the reasons that you laid out. Number 1, I will vouch for him. Like, this is a great person. Like, forget about the dancing. Like, whatever. Like, if you're that old now that you can't relate to these kids on TikTok, that's fine. But don't get mad at them because your parents didn't like a lot of the stuff that you did. You know what I'm saying? Like, even like I know he gets vilified a lot through the Bears Twitter, but like Mike North, like I kind of like Mike North, and I don't know because he probably reminds me of my uncles and everything. And it's like I told Mike one time, I'm like, listen, your family, your elders did not like the stuff that you were doing back when you were young. I know that he's kind of a little bit older now. So he's in a different spot, but I'm like, there was a time when you were that young kid, like people did not approve of what you were doing. You're probably wearing jeans they didn't like or anything like that. So sometimes you just got to let that go. Like, okay, he's going to do TikTok. Is he productive on the football field? Absolutely. He took less money to stay with the Pittsburgh Steelers to show his loyalty. And that's a move that actually backfired on him That's costing him money. He thought he was going to go out there on a prove it deal and get number one receiver money. I like that kind of attitude. And I think that Juju has proven to be a good receiver. I cowardly took him out because I put in Godwin. That was it. I will give it. So I don't hate that pick at all. And we did talk about this on Tuesday night. I like Mike Williams a lot. I just don't feel for the money that he's going to command. I think Mike Williams might end up being the highest paid receiver in this free agent class. You talk about a guy who's not coming off an injury. I think that if Godwin and Gallup were healthy, no doubt about it. If Devontae Adams hit the open market, no doubt about it. But of the guys who are going to be available, not franchise tagged or anything like that, I really do believe that Mike Williams is going to be the highest priced receiver. Somebody's going to pay a lot of money to bring him in. I'm not sure that the Bears should be in that market this season. I don't know if we're quite there yet. I wouldn't be upset by it by any stretch of the imagination. I love Mike Williams. But again, that was my feeling of doing that. I will say this, though. I won't say this. I'm going to ask you a question. What I meant to say. I'm going to ask you a question, though. You did say that you were looking for the Bears to draft a possible number one wide receiver. The Bears are at 39. Obviously, a lot of people love David Bell of Purdue. We've seen Chris Olaf of Ohio State go and Chad Reuters mock draft on NFL.com. Where do you have the Bears going, or what direction do you have the Bears going at that number 39 pick?
Well, it depends. If David Bell or if somehow Chris Olave is there at 39, they'll take. I would be shocked if they don't do that, because in a way, you look at Joe Burrow, what he did with Jamar Chase. We all flamed the Bengals for not drafting Penei
Not me.
Sewell.
Oh, no, not me. I was on board with that.
You were on board with it. I was like iffy on it because I'm like, how is Joe Burrow going to throw to Jamar Chase if he's on the ground? And well, he was on the ground a lot this year, but they made the Super Bowl, so. And everyone's like, well, maybe they would have won. And I'm like, I don't think they get there without Jamar Chase.
They absolutely did not get there if Jamar.
Absolutely not. They probably don't make the playoffs without Jamar 100%. Chase.
I agree with all that.
But so if you look at that, and I think the Bears do have a better O-line than most people think. They still need to draft some guys for the O-line, but I really love Larry Borum. That's my Mizzou bias showing in right there. He was awesome last year, especially when he was on the field. I am a fan of Chris Olave at 39 if he's there. If not, I think you need to trade down, because polls emphasize that the draft is a really great way to build talent, probably the best. And the best way to do that is have a lot of picks, and they don't have a lot of picks because, well, the previous leadership in the front office did trade a lot of picks, but it was worth it last year. I'll take Justin Fields.
I was going to say.
That's what I'm wearing right now. I think if it's not a receiver right there, I think you just trade down, because they need these stockpile picks because they don't have a lot this year. They don't have a first. I don't believe they have a fourth. I'm pretty sure if I look at their picks, they have 39, 71, 147 fifth round. They have 2 fifth rounds and 1 sixth round. So it looks like they have 5 picks exact total. So I think they need to get some picks.
I love that. And I love all your insights and everything like that. And I want to tell everybody, if you want to find more of Adam's work, make sure you're following him on Twitter. Where can they follow you on Twitter?
You can find me at ARRosen76. So it's just my first initial, middle initial, and then my last name, ROSEN 76. I don't know why 76 is my favorite number. I think it's because I liked the Music Man when I was a kid, and the song 76 Trombones got stuck in my head. So I don't know why, but that's just a fun number to say for me. But so yes, that is my Twitter. You can follow me there, and I really appreciate it.
Well, listen, Adam, I want to thank you for coming on, making the time for us here today. We will bring you back hopefully in the very near future, and we'll talk about this. A lot of cool things going on with the Bears. So I appreciate your insights and everything like that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, there he goes. The great Adam Rosen breaking down the wide receiver position for the Bears. Of course, let us know what you think. I know that going with Mike Williams or ignoring Mike Williams is going to be something that people are like, what are you doing? And I understand that, but I hopefully explained myself a lot. Now, we are going to turn our attention to the broader NFL, over the NFL landscape. And before we bring on our next guest, I was wondering, Sammy, do we have a clip of our next guest in action? I mean, we're going to break this down a little bit, but here is Kayla. Oh, Kayla Burton and I at Universal Studios Hollywood. Kayla, what's going on? I'm sorry.
What's going on, Rank? Man, that's a tough clip to watch back. That's a tough clip. You were just as scared. Okay,
I was not scared at all.
What did you?
How dare you? You were frightened.
You were. The thing about when you get scared, though, you have like two expressions. You either really just your shoulders go up. I noticed this about you.
Oh my God, you've really you're breaking down the tape. Okay.
I'm breaking down. Your shoulders go up, or you're stiff. You're just like,
yeah.
So that was a real experience for us. But man, if I keep rewatching that, I'm still spooked looking behind me, thinking that what was her name? Blue?
Blue, yeah.
Yeah, we're good with Blue. We're good with Blue.
Blue, yeah, we're good with Blue. I don't think I ever need to work with Blue again, but I loved working with you over the Super Bowl week for Super Bowl Live there on the NFL Network. It was an absolute honor and privilege. And I didn't give you enough of a proper introduction. Now, obviously, Kayla is on the NFL Network. She is also a former college basketball star at Lehigh. And I get
that introduction. Wow, you need to say washed up now.
No.
We were hooping the other day. You
were draining. Okay, listen. This is the thing too. Like we went out to a basketball hoop that's already configured in a square, so you have to make the perfect shot, and it's an NBA three. And Kayla walks down. It's a double rim. Kayla makes 2 out of her first 3 shots.
And the guy, they're lying, but
no. And the kid even said, like, you'll never get a bounce off this rim. Your first shot hits the back of the rim, goes straight up, and goes in. I'm like, that's a shooter. That's a shooter. I felt like if we would have been out at Venice Beach, we would have taken you out there on the courts. You would have mixed some people up, made them look silly, and we probably could have made a lot of money that way.
No, listen, I think I know you're a good teammate, but let me tell you, I'm a bit washed up now. I'll still bring it out occasionally, but they didn't show some of the air balls that I had, but I was probably like 2 for 5. I don't know. We didn't hit it on air though. We tried. No one ever really does.
Oh no. Well, I wanted you to be in the meme of the reporter that thinks that they've nailed it and then walks away, but they actually miss.
And she was like, yes. And like, they still don't know until after the math. So
instead we get Blue trying to take our heads off as the memeable clip of the Super Bowl.
And the thing was, people were asking, like, were you really scared? Like, was that a really scary situation? Listen, I'm a spooked individual in general.
Yeah.
Okay. Adam, you could probably understand that.
I mean, yeah.
The problem was we knew Blue was coming out.
Yeah.
The issue, we didn't know when Blue was coming out. So to our defense, it made it even more scary. It was a more heightened situation because we knew it was coming, but we didn't know at what moment. And I didn't see how big Blue was. So there you go.
We didn't see. Yeah, we didn't get a chance to see it. And we both produced, not to take away from Jay and our producer, but we both produced it saying like, we don't want to see the dinosaur. We don't want to know when she's arriving. We just want to be surprised in the moment. And I think it worked out, and the clip speaks for itself. Go check that out on Twitter and everything like that. But listen, I'm not here to talk about dinosaurs because in addition to being a former D1 athlete, you also had some experience working with the New England Patriots. You hosted their pregame show. So you know a thing or two about Super Bowls coming from that organization. Your first year with the NFL Network, what did you think about the Rams' run to the Super Bowl this season?
Man, first of all, you would think I've worked with the Patriots. I know a thing or two about their Super Bowls, but that was my first Super Bowl, literally, with the Rams and the Bengals. Yeah, that was my first Super Bowl, and to be blessed by that at SoFi Stadium just in itself is incredible. So cool, especially because you go to the I've been to the Rams, I've been to the Chargers, I've been to SoFi Stadium many times this year, but to get the Super Bowl experience, it's unmatched. It was so neat. Not to mention, you're having the Rams and the Bengals in the Super Bowl, which I don't know how many people predicted those two matching up for Super Bowl 56. Let's be real. Who did you have?
No, what's funny is I pointed this out on Good Morning Football Weekend a couple of weeks ago, is that even on game day morning, heading into Championship Sunday, the only host out of the 30 they had on, which of course didn't include us, but out of the 30, Colleen Wolfe was the only one who picked the correct matchup. And it's like, there's 4 teams. There's like 3 combinations. She was the only one. So she nailed that. I think a lot of people, were looking in other directions. And I think that it was a very unique Super Bowl. And I think it's also a very unique run up to the Super Bowl because the Rams did it through, I don't want to say exclusively free agents, Matthew Stafford, OBJ. We also had Von Miller, among other players. They brought in Andrew Whitworth was a free agent at some point, but they also drafted really well. Like Aaron Donald's a draft pick of theirs. Cooper Kupp is a draft pick of theirs. Do you think that this Rams team is the kind that can have some sustainability similar to the Patriots, which you saw firsthand?
I do. And I don't say that lightly. And the reason why I say I do is because just seeing the development from start to finish, I mean, Sean McVay knows what he's doing. And I know that people, that's not anything earth-shattering to say. But to not draft a first-round pick, to really not be a first-round draft pick kind of guy, and to lean on Matthew Stafford coming from Detroit, and he's giving up 2 first-round picks in a third round. And it's like, you're kind of betting your money in the front office on Matthew Stafford who's coming from Detroit. And honestly, in the beginning of this year, I think a lot of people were questioning Stafford and the picks that he was throwing and the consistency. But then you see it evolve. You see Cooper Kupp, who was just, we can go on and on about the Triple Crown winner. But the additions, to your point, Adam, of Von Miller, Odell, when there was a lot of heat when Odell was coming from Cleveland. How is he? I remember being there. I remember being at the press conference. It was so amazing because Sean McVay was at the podium during the press conference, and we didn't know where Odell was. No one knew at that moment where Odell was going to go. And I remember, I want to say it was Jordan who asked Sean McVay, because she's awesome like that, and she's not afraid. She's like, yeah, what, or do you have any interest in Odell? And he was so subtle about it. He goes, we'll see. I'll leave that. He just kind of brushed it off. Kid you not, I think it was like 10 minutes later, boom, Odell is coming to the Rams. And then the question is, okay, well, you have Cooper Kupp, big time receiver. Then you have Odell. How will the two blend? And how is this team going to evolve together? And obviously getting Von Miller on the defensive side of stuff is huge as well. But to see this team mesh the way they did, that's why I think in the future they're going to be, I don't know if they're going to be able to, go back to back. I won't doubt it. The other question is Von Miller, what he's going to do. He does say he loves LA. He loves the Rams. He loves LA. I just was talking to him yesterday. I say that casually. It was an interview, but no, this is we brought you on specifically to name drop. You're happy to name drop.
It reminds me. I will tell you this. I'm surprised I didn't tell you this, but I remember one thing that George Clooney once told me, and he said, "Adam, never name drop." But I ignore that advice all the time. So, but please, you talked to
I'm already going against George Clooney. Now I'm on his crap list. That's awesome.
I'm kidding. But you talked to Von Miller yesterday. Where's his head at?
Casually just had a conversation with Von Miller. No, it wasn't casual. Well, his head is probably sleeping right now because that man is tired, and rightfully so. But I remember he did say earlier, not to me yesterday, but the fact that he loves LA, and he showed that, and he's been showing that. But whether or not he's actually going to be staying here in Los Angeles, is Aaron Donald coming back? We know we saw him. I hope that one more time actually means one more time. We'll see. But the future is bright for the Rams just because of not only the quality and the depth of players and the talent that they have, but the system, the chemistry that they have. Even just being around their locker room and going into their press conferences and talking to them, they all get along so well. Cooper Kupp would stay after. I know Steve Weish pointed this out to me when I was, following Weish and company. One of my second or whatever, first or second press conferences, Cooper Kupp was waiting like this. He had his arms crossed. He was waiting for the press conference to get finished so he could meet with Stafford and say, all right, you need to break this down to me. How am I supposed to run this route? And those two That's what they do. They're like the Breakfast Club. I think they eat breakfast together. I don't know. I could be making that up. But
no, you're not. Yeah, that's an absolute true statement. Like they did hang out and eat breakfast today, and it became like a running joke throughout the entire season. But obviously paid up.
We should try that. We'll get there and invite Blue to our breakfast.
Yeah, club. We'll be part of the Breakfast Club. We'll do that. But but the thing is, you talk about the draft picks that the Rams gave up to get Matthew Stafford. I think they gave up draft picks to get rid of Jared Goff. And I think that, again, it kind of strikes itself where a lot of teams will stick with guys like, well, Goff got us to the Super Bowl before and we'll be miserable and it won't work out. The Rams were willing to just let go of a guy who is not performing or was not going to ever perform that way again. And again, it reminds me of the Patriots. And I know we spent a lot of time because to me, I'm like, I don't want the Rams to be good. This is a Bears show. We want the Bears to get to this level, but it feels like the Rams are going to be one of these teams that stick around for a while.
100%. And it's, again, like the faith that McVay has in Stafford. I remember, which game was it, Rank? Was it the Niners or the Cardinals? I can't remember. It was a press conference where after the game and McVay goes, if you're not rooting for Stafford, something's wrong with you. Yeah. And that's just, that's a testament to not only, yes, you can buy into the whole belief system, but the way that they run their offense. And this is just collectively with Odell now joining, Cooper Kupp, Stafford, all three of them being in that unit. Now, Cam Akers, obviously you got to see him finally, carry the team a little bit towards the end of the season because we didn't see him at all. So to see that carry over, depending on who stays and who goes, I mean, how do you not build off of this?
Yeah, it is something that is a little bit frightening. But at the same time, I think that the Bears fans are still we're a little optimistic. I think one of the things that we're optimistic about is this season, the Cincinnati Bengals were able to turn it around based on their quarterback, Joe Burrow, who played at Ohio State briefly. But like the Bears quarterback, Justin Fields, also played at Ohio State, also going into his second year. Let's talk first, though, Joe Burrow. How impressed were you by him this season? Because I think the swag level off the charts and his play absolutely backed it up.
I was going to say, first of all, the references to the Bears, I am very impressed. Keep that going. That's loyalty right there.
You're on the Sick podcast talking about the Chicago Bears. It's always about the Bears. We're singular in focus here.
Even when we were around Bengals fans, I wasn't sure if you were going to bring up the Bears in some type of capacity, but I was very, very impressed.
I wanted to keep it realistic. I didn't want to take away from their moment. We're sitting there on the Santa Monica Pier in California. It's not the time to be like, hey, how about the Bears? Like I'll give the Bengals their love. And similarly, I'm giving their love here. Joe Burrow, though, I came away absolutely impressed by everything that he did. I know that there's a whole group of 16 quarterbacks who lost their first appearance, who never went back. I think Joe Burrow could reverse that trend.
I totally agree with you, and not just to agree with you, but I mean, the swag we can talk about for days, but honestly, what impresses me about Joe Burrow, and this is something that quarterback coach Dan Pitcher said earlier before leading up to the Super Bowl. He said that it's not his even demeanor that impresses him. Obviously, I mean, come on, how do you not get impressed when you have that kind of drip? Yes, that's a word, drip that Joe Burrow has. There we go. But the fact that he was able to not only learn, but really excel in both systems, stemming back in college at Ohio State and then winning a national championship at LSU. That's not, it was Dan Pitcher who said, that's not easy to do, and then not to mention 2 years in the NFL, you're going up against another quarterback who's been in here for 13 seasons and you're in the Super Bowl. So the way that he carries himself, he does not play like a youngster. And you obviously see that, and we know that, but the connection that he has with Jamar Chase too, and even stemming back to when they first beat the Chiefs, he had over 400 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
This is a guy
that was all in the fourth quarter, felt like, but yeah.
Yeah. It took a little bit. And they were down I think 3 times a 14-point deficit.
21-3. Yeah. Something crazy.
It was, but and if they don't have to dig themselves in that hole early on, think about how much better they can be. Now, the problem I have is the number of times he gets sacked. I mean, we know that we talk about this, but seriously, what was it, 70 times overall this year? Okay. 19 sacks in the postseason. My goodness. Can someone put a wall in front of him? Like,
yeah,
the guy is getting trucked. So just imagine if he's on his feet more, getting the protection that O-line needs to create for him, and then additionally continuing to do what he has been doing, sky's the limit.
No, I agree. And if you look at the last two Super Bowl losers, I think that Kansas City, their loss can be pinned on their offensive line. You know, if that offensive line is healthy, they probably end up beating, or at least be competitive with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And similarly, the Bengals had a way better chance than the Chiefs did 2 years ago. And again, it came down to the offensive line. If Joe Burrow has the opportunity to connect with Jamar Chase, what could have been a go-ahead touchdown. I say go-ahead because the Rams would have been left with, 40 seconds or something? Like, who knows what this season? There could have been 3 more scores. So I think the offensive line is important, but ultimately you have to have that quarterback. And one of the things I did want to ask you, and this is not an ambush situation by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that you have the Patriots background. I'm sure that you're pulling for Mac Jones, even though, listen, you're an NFL Network employee now. You're not sure if you can show your Patriots colors or not. I get it. It took me a long time before I could finally be like, listen, I'm a Bears fan. I don't care.
I have to put this shirt away.
No.
No, I can't wear it anymore. And rightfully so. No.
You can.
Especially
lean into it. Who's going to be mad? Listen, let me ask you a question. You were at the parade yesterday. I've seen on Twitter that the Rams fans were getting maligned because it felt like somebody took a photo from early in the morning and was like, oh, there's no fans here. Settle this for me. Were there actual fans at that Rams rally?
I appreciate you asking me this question because when I went live, first of all, I'm next to the stereo. So to have an IFB in my ear trying to hear anyone, it was like the Santa Monica Pier with all the Bengals fans. Like it's almost impossible. So from the non-bird's eye perspective, there were fans up against, there was a gate or the buses would go through this gate. So fans were up against the gate. So from my vision, I'm like, there's a lot of fans here. The problem is from the drone shot and coming from New England, come on. It's a bit different. So when I said the fans are packing the area, my area, yes. The area, no. And and shout out to the Rams, Aaron, just all the players because, and I love Cooper Kupp with that Kobe jersey. Like how awesome is that? But, that
was dope. Yeah. I appreciate it.
I love that. But you know what, they're just such a collective group and team that they don't even, would it have been nice to have, more fans? Obviously they know that a lot of the fan base in LA is more so towards the Lakers and stuff like that. But shout out to them because I think if they were to have a run it back type of season next year, which who knows, what that will look like, there has to be more fans than that because they deserve it. That's just insane. It was not as many fans as I thought it was because from my standpoint, I did see the fans, but from that drone shot, I'm like, whoo, it's not like Boston.
That was rough. Okay. A lot of it. So what are you scared of? You're scared of 14 Rams fans getting upset with you for wearing a New England Patriots shirt. You're going to be fine. Where we might have an issue, because I will say this: when the Bears win the Super Bowl, that celebration, it's going to be in February. It's going to be cold. It is going to be off the chain. It is going to make
year? What? I'm just looking at the timeline.
2023. Listen, in the near future. When that goes on, it's going to make the Cubs celebration look like the Goo Goo Dolls opening a Food for Less. I'll tell you this. But here's what I want to. Here's why I bring up the Patriots, because obviously Mac Jones had a great rookie season, made the Pro Bowl. He did the gritty in the Pro Bowl, amazing. I love Mac Jones. Yeah. Draft Dr. Phil, who's a friend of the show, loves Mac Jones. A lot of Bears fans have love for Mac Jones, but at some point we have to realize Justin Fields is our guy, who is my number one guy, who's the guy that I wanted above anybody. Even I know that Trevor Lawrence was not realistic, but Justin Fields was the guy that I wanted. From your perspective, and again, you're on the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank, a Bears podcast, but listen, don't let this influence your answer. We're not. It is.
I know.
Who would you rather have?
Frank, I know now.
Who would you rather have? Justin Fields, Mac Jones?
I'm going to say this without, I threw that shirt away. I came neutral today. I'm not wearing any shirt. I'm with NFL Network. I don't have any bias to any team. Mac Jones, and I'm not saying that. I know you would assume she covered the Patriots. She was born and raised in the Boston area. Don't be shaking your head over there, Rank. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't have
You can read this body language, I'm sure.
No,
Study this film of my anger.
But hey, you're getting someone who's honest. We're an honest team. We're an honest squad, right? How do you not only because he's this Alabama guy who everyone loves and he can do the gritty, which he did for 2 seconds, but I still count it as the gritty.
It counts.
It counts. But I mean, he led the quarterback rookies in wins, pass yards, passing touchdowns. Like he completed, I think it was like 67% of his passes this season. And then they go on a 7-game win streak. The problem was the bye week. That daggone bye week. But to Mac Jones's point, here's the thing. You're coming, just keeping perspective here.
Okay.
The season before, you have Cam Newton, who's also, despite him not having the most stellar season and the Patriots missed the playoffs, that's behind Tom Brady and then behind Cam Newton, and you're coming in as a rookie into New England? Do you want to talk? We're brutal out in New England. New England, I mean, the light turns green in a second and we're sitting on our horn. Like we're tough.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So the pressure that Mac Jones had to endure going up into it, and then being coached by Bill Belichick, which, by the way, I think is a phenomenal combination. And we all know that it is. Those two are like blessed for each other. After Jimmy G, I think it's, Mac Jones, who's the next son of Belichick. But honestly, just not only his character, I remember Matthew Slater saying, and this is coming from Matthew Slater, the veteran, the captain. He doesn't say this lightly, but Mac Jones is in the film room. He's one of the last guys out. And he's also a learner, which is what Belichick needs for that offensive group. I think, he needs more time. He needs more experience, but to be considered a rookie, one of the best rookie candidates in the entire NFL this season, obviously Jamar Chase winning that one, rightfully so. Right. But, that's a testament. I'm not trying to knock on Justin Fields.
No. That's the one. No, honestly, it's the one thing that always irritates me about sports arguments is that you can listen. Mac Jones is a good quarterback who I think is going to be great in the NFL. And again, coming into last year's draft, going on the Tape Never Lies network, I was having these conversations of like, if we end up drafting Mac Jones, I am not going to be upset about this. I think he's a good quarterback. I prefer Justin Fields because of his athleticism, his ability to throw the deep ball, because I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Everybody thinks like how fast he is, but it's like, no, that's just an element of his game. It's not his game, so to speak. So I was okay with it. But the argument, but whenever you say something like, hey, which guy do you want? Like me favoring Justin Fields does not mean that Mac Jones is not good. But that's the way sports arguments are. Oh, so she just said, Kayla Burton just said that Justin Fields is garbage. Like that's not what she's saying.
That's gonna watch. It's gonna be a tweet. I gave her.
It's gonna come from my account. But no, I'm kidding. It's but the thing of it is like both these things can be, true. Like both these quarterbacks can be good, and I hope in the future that it's going to be one of those things where he's like, oh, it's a rivalry. Maybe someday they will match up in the Super Bowl. But I think that you can be happy with your guy. I can be happy with my guy. It's like when I was a kid,
we can be peaceful.
We can be peaceful. Listen, when I was a kid. You know what? And this, you might not have heard of either one of these bands. So you might want to they're worth a Google when I give you this analogy. But there were kids who were like, that were Pearl Jam and you were Nirvana. You could like both of them, but you favored one over the other. I was a Pearl Jam kid. And so, which is weird now because I love Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters, different element. But you know what I'm saying? That like you kind of came into this thing like you're one or the other. Both can be good. Like I didn't hate Nirvana. I didn't think Nirvana was a bad band or anything, but it's like, if you're giving me one CD, and this is back in the day, we used to have these silver discs they used to put like right near.
Frank, I know I'm 26 years old, but daggone, I'm not like 4. I'm not 12.
I know.
But I guess to your point, it's like what Drake and Lil Wayne. We could, generationally speaking. Actually, it's probably a bad comparison, but I'm with you. Continue.
No. But I'm saying like a lot of things, like the Super Bowl halftime show. You can like Dre, you can like Snoop. You prefer one of the other. Who would you, if you had to choose one to ride shotgun? One guy gets to ride shotgun. Who is it? Who is it? Like, but it doesn't mean you don't like that person. Right. Sometimes it does, but in any event, I think that I like both of them. Hopefully for me, and like this is the God's honest truth, I hope that they're both way better than Trey Lance. So we can look back and laugh at the 49ers. Be like, first of all, I'm still upset from the Mitch Trubisky thing. So I've still got a little bit of resentment towards the 49ers. But I really do believe at some point I would love to see them just be like, hey, guys, sorry. You took Trey Lance when you could have had Mac Jones or Justin Fields, as both those guys are dominating. That's my sincere hope. I will take Justin Fields still, even though his rookie season was not as good as Mac Jones. I can admit that.
But he has the weapons. Mac Jones, to your point, I will back you up here. Mac Jones, I think, has more weapons around him. Offensively, defensively, I mean, J.C. Jackson, we don't know what his situation is, and that's going to be really telling for this offseason. But even just the weapons entirely around him, I don't think Justin Fields has enough veteran players, but also guys that really, back him up, so to speak. Whereas Mac Jones, like you're able to take some of the pressure off of him. Like Justin Fields was sprinting in and out of the pocket every other second. It was chaotic, honestly. And you have to, it's more of the offensive group. But here's the problem with I wouldn't say problem, but what everyone's going to be eyeing is who is Mac Jones now with a new offensive coordinator? Josh McDaniels, he's gone. So who's developing him? Because Mac Jones needs that development, even though, and Brian Hoyer, no, I'm not attesting that. I'll leave that there. But
that's fine.
Brian Hoyer still has that he's almost like a second coach to Jones.
100%. We love Brian Hoyer. Listen, nobody's going to say a bad word about Brian Hoyer here. No. So I agree with that.
And I love that. I think there's a reason why he's kept on that team. He needs to be that developmental guy for Jones, but it is going to be interesting to see. Okay. And I think Mac Jones is good enough to blend with any offensive coordinator that comes in, and even Joe Judge returning to the Pats, as their offensive assistant. But it is going to be interesting to see how Mac develops into the second season. But I do think the ceiling is high just based off of his confidence level. You could even see, I remember the first press conference that he had, he was smiling all the time. He was the perfect quarterback that was, answering it's my fault. We got to do better. I got to do better. It's on me. But he has a swag to him. You saw him in the gritty, but even like throughout this season, I think once he started to get going and then they won those 7 straight games before their bye week and taking that brutal loss to the Colts. But I think that he's really developed that confidence that he needed. And now going into this next season, it's going to be pretty solid coming from him.
He really does feel like a quarterback that's going to be able to weather that challenge, coming in from Alabama, having all the success that he's had throughout his career. And really, and it goes back to like when you're talking about Mac Jones and you think about, he came into a stable situation. He had Josh McDaniels there as his offensive coordinator. The Patriots moved quickly to get rid of Cam Newton to make sure that he wasn't a distraction so that people, you're not flip-flopping between the two. They made a commitment to Mac Jones. They went out there. They signed a lot of offensive talent, including Nelson Aguilar, Hunter Henry, the tight end from Tennessee, whose name is, I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. But they went out there and made an investment around him. Compare that to the Chicago Bears, who didn't let Justin Fields take first-team reps. They kept Andy Dalton around. They didn't feature Allen Robinson and seemed to scheme him out of the building. And to me, it just is, it's not comparable situations in a way. I do hope that this year with this new organization in Chicago, they put the investment, and it sounds like they're saying all the right things. And we'll see as free agency approaches here in a couple of weeks, like how much when they start putting their money where their mouth is. So I think that both these guys can be good.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But it is, free agency is just around the corner. And that's also going to affect the Pats because J.C. Jackson, like if he's out, that's a problem for the Patriots. They already lost Stephon Gilmore. J.C. Jackson, I think, had 17 interceptions in the past 2 seasons combined. And now you have very limited cap space. I think a little over $7 million. And so it's like, okay, not to mention too, J.C. Jackson was offered an extension midway through this past season and rejected it. I think he does love New England, but he knows on the market he's the best cornerback right now. So
how do you think he likes Chicago?
Nancy,
I don't know. I mean, like, hey, we got some money to spend. Like, do you want to come? And
So if he does, are you going to be the one going into the office and pleading for that?
I will be a pill if that happens. I think that's a great option. It is, and it's curious. It'll be interesting to see the direction the Chicago Bears take as they're starting to build this team, because I truly believe that your 2 most necessary things to do is to get the offensive line sorted, to get your wide receiver room sorted. And earlier in the show, we went over a top 5 list of guys we could go after. And I think that watching Eli Apple play in the Super Bowl, I think defense might not be as important. I mean, it's important. You can't let it be Eli Apple bad, but at the same time, like, you can still get there if your offense is pretty good. So hopefully.
Hey, Rank, you know what I think? I think if you were to go to Chick-fil-A or whatever type of restaurant and you were to be talking about your favorite movie, you'd still find a way to say, but you know what? You know what I think about the Chicago Bears? I think
this is a Chicago Bears show. This isn't like when I'm on Total Access.
I'm saying that show, even off the show, you're still. I'm impressed. I'm impressed how you're able to parallel anything to the Bears. Like that's impressive.
If it's not Bears, it's professional wrestling, or it's Ocean's 11, or it's my terrible taste in music. Outdated taste in music, I should say. Not terrible. I enjoy my taste in music.
I'll get you right. We'll hook it up with the music. I got some good jams.
All right. I will look forward to that. And Kayla, I hope that we will continue to do some more stuff in the future. If you don't mind, I would like to have you back at some other point during the offseason to talk about free agency when that starts unfolding and everything. But where can the fans find you on the social media channels and, of course, on NFL Network?
Rank, first and foremost, I appreciate you. By the way, we talked about this earlier. I'll call you Adam and I call you Rank. So if I go back and forth, it's
fine.
Name.
I got you.
Where you can find me, listen, I laugh because, all right, I'm just going to say it. My Twitter handle is KAY_breezy22. Now, when I entered the television industry,
I almost didn't follow you because of that name. I was like, do I really?
Do you know it was my 8th grade boyfriend? Yes, whatever that was. I had an 8th grade boyfriend, and the way you would flirt would be I would be rapping or whatever I would attempt to.
Yeah.
He was this. I don't know where he's at now, but I hope that he's rapping because he started it back then. Anyway, he was like, "You need a rap name," and he goes, "K Breezy," and I go, "I like it." So when I got to my old television station, it's very interesting when the lower third or the Twitter handle, you're taking me seriously, and then it says K Breezy. I'm like, you know what? But it's stuck, so I'm just gonna keep it. So yes, you can find me at K Breezy 22.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we will see you very soon here on this show. And of course, hopefully we can connect and do some more stuff for the NFL Network, NFL Media Group. But thank you very much for being here.
Adam, thank you. Everybody, appreciate you watching. And I guess I'll say it once, but go Bears.
There it is, bear down. And there she goes, the great Kayla Burton. And of course, you can check her out on Twitter, KBreezy22. There's an underscore in there. Want to thank everybody for joining the show here today. Adam Rosen, of course, Kayla. Thanks to everybody who's liked and subscribed to the podcast. Continue to do that stuff. Spread the word. Trying to expand our horizons a little bit. But you know what? I thought it was important to talk about the Super Bowl that just happened. Of course, that is our aspiration at some point to get the Bears to a Super Bowl. And we will have more fans at our parade than the Rams did this week. So you know what? Keep the faith. And until Tuesday night, when we bring you back for another Take It to the Rank, I'm going to say this once. Bear down. Sammy, play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.